Her tongue won't stop growing in the village of Akyemfo, where the Akan drums beat loud and the market bustled with life, lived a strong, dignified woman named Afia Nyamekye. Despite hardships, Afia was respected for her kindness and resilience. But her life had not always been easy. Years ago, on her way to her husband's home, a tragic accident changed everything, leaving her with no use of her legs. Despite the whispers and sympathetic glances, Afia remained joyful and kept her heart open, raising her only daughter, Adjoa. Afia's gentleness was admired by many, but to her sorrow, her daughter Adjoa was known for her sharp and unforgiving tongue. Adjoa was strikingly beautiful, but her beauty was matched only by the vicious words she unleashed on the unsuspecting. She wielded her words like a double-edged sword, sparing no one who crossed her path. Daughter, Wutiri Yaduru, your mind is strong, but you must learn that words are like stones thrown at a wall. When they bounce back, they often hurt the thrower, Afia would warn. But Adjoa would simply roll her eyes, her impatience plain on her face. One Harmattan morning, the elders sent for Adjoa. Her reputation for disrespect had grown, and the village council hoped to teach her humility before she angered the spirits. But when the message arrived, Adjoa laughed. "Who are they to summon me? Let them stay in their dusty huts," she scoffed. Her pride was insurmountable, yet even the elders would not relent. They sent 2 strong young men, Yor and Kwame, to bring her to the town square. Begrudgingly, Adjoa followed. The entire village had gathered, watching with bated breath as she stood before the council. But as the elders began to caution her, she interrupted with scorn. "Look at you, bent like withered trees. You think you can teach me? What wisdom do you hold besides old tales and limp hands?" She turned to Nanakwasi, the oldest of the elders, and sneered, "Your advice is as dry as the cassava in your empty barn." The villagers gasped, and the elders exchanged looks of disappointment, but they remained silent, deciding that time itself would teach Adjoa what their words could not. Days later, Adjoa went to the riverside to fetch water, her sharp tongue ready for anyone who might provoke her. As she bent to fill her calabash, she accidentally splashed an old woman beside her who was washing her tattered cloth in the river. Startled, the old woman looked up with a soft smile and said, "Ya, my child, forgive my slowness. The years have taken their toll on my bones." But Adjoa's face twisted with disdain. "You should stay hidden in the forest with the other creatures. Look at you, old and useless, lingering around like a bad omen. Perhaps you lost your children because even they could not bear to look at your face." The old woman's smile faded, and her eyes filled with a sorrow as deep as the river's currents. Without a word, she rose and shuffled away, leaving Adjoa by the riverbank, feeling triumphant. But that night, as Adjoa prepared for bed, an odd tingling stirred in her mouth. She ignored it at first, but as the hours passed, a strange weight began to pull at her tongue. She touched it in confusion, finding it swollen and thick. By morning, her tongue had grown so large that she struggled to speak. Afia noticed her daughter's distress and cried, "Adjoa, my dear, what has befallen you?" Adjoa could only mumble, her words twisted and garbled. Her once powerful tongue now felt like a curse, filling her mouth and silencing her. Afia, worried and desperate, went door to door, pleading for anyone to help her daughter. But one by one, the villagers refused. "She insulted my son last market day," one mother said coldly. "Let her reap what she has sown." Finally, in despair, Afia remembered the old woman at the riverside. With newfound determination, Afia set out for the forest, where the old woman was said to live. The path was rough, and she struggled, but her love for Adjoa gave her strength. Along the way, the forest animals seemed to watch her with curiosity, almost as if they knew of her plight. When she finally reached the edge of a small, hidden grove, the old woman was waiting, seated on a tree stump with a quiet smile. Afia fell to her knees, tears in her eyes. "Please, wise one, my daughter is suffering terribly. I beg you, whatever she has done, forgive her," she pleaded. The old woman regarded her with soft, knowing eyes. "Afia Nyamekye," she said, her voice as smooth as the forest breeze. "You are a woman of great kindness, and your daughter's heartless words have brought you deep sorrow. But know this, every word she has spoken holds weight." "I understand," Afia replied, her voice trembling. "But please, give her a second chance. I believe in her, even if she has hurt me." The old woman's gaze softened. "For your sake, I will help. But remember, this cure will not be easy, and Adjoa must take the steps herself. Only if she chooses the right path will her tongue be freed from this curse." Afia nodded, eager to do anything that would save her daughter. The old woman pulled a small gourd from her cloth bag, filled with a thick, red liquid that shimmered as if alive. "Take this to Adjoa. Tell her to drink a single sip each night at the stroke of midnight, and she will have visions. But," she warned, "if she speaks a single cruel word while on this path, the curse will grow even stronger. Her journey will be one of silence, humility, and reflection." Afia took the gourd carefully, her heart heavy with both gratitude and dread. She thanked the old woman with a bow and made her way back to the village. That night, as the moon rose high, Afia placed the gourd beside her daughter. With great difficulty, she managed to explain the old woman's instructions. Though Adjoa couldn't speak, her eyes betrayed a mix of fear and pride. She reluctantly took her first sip as the midnight hour struck. The red liquid was warm and tasted of something bitter and ancient. Within moments, her head grew heavy, and a strange fog filled her mind. She drifted into a deep slumber, only to awaken in an unfamiliar place, a place that looked like Akyemfo, but twisted and silent, devoid of any sound. The huts seemed to lean toward her, and the trees loomed, their branches pointing accusingly. Adjoa walked through this ghostly village, feeling a weight in her heart she hadn't felt before. Then, as she turned a corner, she saw the first familiar face, a young girl she had insulted at the river last harvest season. The girl sat on the ground, clutching her knees, tears streaking her face. "Adjoa," the girl whispered, her voice echoing in Adjoa's mind. "Why did you say those things? I only wanted to help." Adjoa opened her mouth to respond, but no sound escaped her lips. She felt the pain of her words, as if they were a heavy stone pressing down on her chest. She tried to reach out, but the girl faded away, her form dissolving into mist. Night after night, Adjoa drank the red liquid and returned to this strange realm. Each night, she encountered someone else she had wronged. There was Nana Kwasi, the elder she had mocked, his face shadowed with sadness. She saw a group of village children she had humiliated, their eyes wide and silent, mirroring her own shame. Finally, on the seventh night, she came upon a figure unlike the others, her own mother, Afia, radiant and strong, but with sorrowful eyes. "Adjoa," her mother's voice echoed, "I tried to teach you, but you would not listen." Adjoa reached out, the urge to apologize pressing so hard on her chest it hurt. But again, no sound came, only her hands stretching desperately forward. The image of her mother blurred and faded, leaving her standing alone in the empty village. And then, for the first time, she felt a tear slip down her cheek. When she awoke, she found her mother at her bedside, holding her hand with a soft smile. Though her tongue was still heavy, she could feel something had shifted within her heart. Afia squeezed her hand gently. "The wise woman has given you a second chance, my daughter. Do you have the courage to finish what you've started?" With a silent nod, Adjoa agreed, knowing her true test had only just begun. For the next few days, Adjoa found herself burdened by the weight of what she had seen and felt in the otherworldly visions. Each vision lingered with her like a shadow, bringing a new humility to her spirit. Though she still struggled to speak, her gestures softened, and her eyes, once sharp with pride, now held a gentleness the villagers had never seen. But the curse was not yet broken. One day, she gathered the courage to return to the village square where the elders were meeting. This time, she bowed her head and knelt before them, unable to speak, but her lowered gaze spoke volumes. Slowly, she took a piece of charcoal and a dried leaf, writing with shaking hands, "Forgive me." The elders exchanged glances, surprised by the change in her demeanor. Nanakwasi, the eldest, spoke first. "Words have weight, Adjoa, but so does silence. You've begun to understand the power of humility, and for this, we will forgive you." Though Adjoa still couldn't speak, tears of gratitude filled her eyes. With a nod of respect to the elders, she left the square, determined to continue on this new path. Her next journey took her to the river, where she had insulted the old woman. With slow steps, she reached the riverbank, searching for her. The old woman appeared, her back bent as she washed a length of cloth in the clear, flowing water. Adjoa knelt beside her, her face full of remorse. She took the woman's hand, and with her other hand, she traced a heart into the soft riverbank soil, hoping the old woman would understand. The woman looked at Adjoa, her eyes filled with wisdom and quiet forgiveness. Without a word, she handed Adjoa a small clay pot filled with water from the river. Adjoa accepted it with gratitude, realizing it was her final task. She returned to her home, where her mother waited with open arms, full of hope for her daughter's redemption. That night, under the moon's watchful gaze, Adjoa drank from the clay pot. The cool water eased the weight in her mouth, and slowly, her tongue returned to its normal size. She felt a wave of relief, but the pain in her heart remained, serving as a constant reminder of her journey. With her voice restored, Adjoa went to each person she had wronged, speaking words of apology with a sincerity that moved even the most hardened villagers. Her humility became known far and wide, transforming her from a girl feared for her sharp tongue to a woman respected for her grace and kindness. Her story became a cautionary tale in Akyemfo, told to children by their parents as a lesson on the power of words and the importance of humility. Years later, Adjoa became a wise elder, often sitting by the river, helping others with gentle words and a smile. And in her heart, she knew that though her words had once brought sorrow, her silence had brought healing to herself and to her village.